Good morning and welcome to the Saturday, December 17th. This is Just Parlays with Chris King. Of course, I'm your host, Chris King, because as you notice, there's still nobody else here. As you know, we're just about a week away from Christmas. Hopefully, you guys have at least started your Christmas shopping if you haven't completed it at this point. And hopefully, you're ready for another exciting weekend of sports because we've got just about everything going this today. We've got, you got college bowl games starting in a couple hours because at 11 o'clock you'll have, is it 11 or 11:30? Yeah, 11 o'clock you've got Cincinnati and Louisville as Scott Satterfield, was the coach of Louisville. Now he's going to take the Cincinnati job, so he won't coach either team today. In the Fenway Bowl at Fenway Park, probably won't be a lot of scoring there. Both teams with new coaches. Luke Fickell took the job at Wisconsin. So that'll be an interesting matchup. We've also got NBA action tonight. We've got the NHL. We've got college basketball with roughly 372,000 games going on. And, of course, we've got 3 NFL games on the schedule because it's that time of year where the NFL decides, since there's no college games to speak of going on, they'll bring out some games, including a big primetime game in Orchard Park, where the Miami Dolphins will head to Buffalo to take on the Bills. The weather less than favorable for the visiting team, as there's plenty of snow on the ground already, with more to come. So it should be an interesting evening for sure. It's definitely the highlight game of the day when you look at it, because we're talking about the early games being Indianapolis and Minnesota. Nobody really cares about that contest unless you're a Vikings fan. And then you've got Baltimore and Cleveland with a contest that's going to be interesting to say the least. Nobody's been overly impressed with what Deshaun Watson has done in his first 2 games with the Browns. The Ravens could be Tyler Huntley, could be Anthony Brown. Probably doesn't matter. But in Orchard Park, as of 6:30 this morning, according to Pat Hammer, one of the meteorologists up there, they had already had 8 inches of snow at the stadium. It's still coming down. If you want to keep an eye on what the weather looks like up there, you can follow Pat Hammer at Pat Hammer. He's got ongoing updates of the snow on Twitter. So plenty of good stuff to talk about. We saw bowl season kickoff yesterday. We saw UTSA and Troy in a defensive struggle. UTSA had the game going their way early on. They were up 12-0 midway through the third quarter, and then their offense dried up because they turned it over 5 times. Troy rallied to win that one 18-12. Very disappointing because you look at Troy had a total of 153 yards of offense. But they didn't need to go far because their first 2 scoring drives covered 13 and 22 yards to get to the end zone. They had an extended drive that chewed up 7 minutes and 40 seconds, spanning the third and fourth quarters, where they went 71 yards in 15 plays. But, Troy's defense is what won them that ball game. Frank Harris started strong, faded after that. You look at the way UTSA went later in the contest, and they went on their last several possessions, interception on their next to last drive before the half. That set up Troy's first touchdown. Then they went fumble, interception, 3-and-out punt. They turned it over on downs on their last 2 drives, including one where they reached the Troy 3-yard line. They had 3 cracks at it from the 3 and threw incomplete passes on all 3 drives. Just a disappointing conclusion to that game for the Roadrunners. Meanwhile, in the Bahamas Bowl, you saw UAB knock off Miami of Ohio 24-20. I was a little disappointed. Dwayne McBride, the nation's leading rusher, decided on Thursday not to play in the game. Took a big weapon out of UAB's offense. They rallied to win the game as Jermaine Brown ran for 116 and 2 scores. But still, it would have been interesting to see what McBride could have done against that Miami of Ohio defense. You look at and you see that at the end of the game, Miami of Ohio had the ball, drove down the field, got to the 15-yard line, threw a pass, and they finally, Jalen Walker was tackled at the UAB 2 to preserve the victory. But you have to think if McBride played, it would have been a more one-sided contest. Now, before we get too involved in what's going on today, I want to point out that, make sure that you like and subscribe. Of course, hit the bell so that way you'll know when we're going to be on. At this point, we're still going to be on 9 a.m. on Eastern on Saturday mornings. Though, I'd like to hear, would you guys rather see us on Saturday morning, or would you rather see us on Friday night, where we can talk about what's going to be going on Saturday and give you a little bit of a head start on things, because it's something that we're talking about. We want to hear what you guys want to think. If it would be more convenient, would it be easier? Would it be better for you guys if we were on Fridays as opposed to Saturday mornings? So comment and point that out. Let us know what you're thinking about all that. Like I said, obviously, like and subscribe, hit the bell so you'll never miss the show whatever time we're on. Also, you can always get my press premium bets every day. You can check the link in the show box. And also check out Winners and Winers website and YouTube channels for free picks all day, because Winners and Winers, obviously, we cover every major game that's going on in every sport. And, you got guys like Dave Delano and Mason Foles. Of course, the Steamroller, all those guys doing daily videos with their picks of specific contests. And, of course, I pointed this out in Twitter and everything. There's a special 14 parlay available to you guys for being viewers of the show. I've got the link to it in the box. It's a 14er. It's only $12. So, that's a pretty good deal. And plus, there's an even better deal. I'm going to get you a promo code here in 1 second that you can use. And we'll go from there. Just give me 1 second. I have to get this to cooperate. Because, of course, sometimes things aren't, the most cooperative early in the morning, kind of like me. But you can use the promo code HRKV60CK. That's HRKV60CK, and you'll save 60% off that. So that would take you down to under $5. So, that's you can't beat that kind of deal when you get right down to it. But all you've got to do is there's a link in the show box. Click it. It'll take you to the checkout for it. You can go in there. You can purchase the parlay. It'll be sent to your email. You'll be able to utilize it and be good to go on that front. Like I said, that's a deal that's only for viewers of the show, because if you don't watch the show, you wouldn't know that parlay existed to begin with. Looking back at last week's show, the 3-teamer we had panned out, which was the Kings over the Canadians. We had Army over Navy, which, of course, the disappointing part of that game was the fact that we had the under in that game, and it was well under the total at the end of regulation. And then the teams decided to score a bunch of points in overtime to push it over the mark. Army winning 20-17, winning outright as a 3-point underdog. And, of course, we had UC Irvine beating South Dakota. That contest was a runaway in favor of the Anteaters. So if you were here last week and you followed that, you would have made yourself some money. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? We'll take a look here at a couple other things that happened yesterday. We saw Kyrie Irving hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to help the Nets beat the Raptors. All of a sudden, the Nets are playing good basketball. We saw Orlando surprise Boston at the TD Garden. And what's going on with the Magic? All of a sudden, they've won a couple games, which is strange. They've won 5 in a row. They swept the Raptors earlier this week. They beat the Hawks. They beat the Clippers. Then they go on the road and beat Boston. So Orlando has doubled their win total on the season in the last 5 games. They were just 5-20 before that. Now they're 10-20. On the plus side, that moved them all the way up to 4th place in the Southeast. But that's a bad division, as the Heat and Hawks are both sitting at 500 atop the division race. The Wizards 11-18. They've dropped 8 in a row. Orlando 10-20. Charlotte 7-22. We saw Dallas run past Portland. We saw the Lakers beat the Nuggets. Denver fell off a cliff. They were up 7 points shortly before the half and then forgot to play basketball the rest of the game. We saw Cleveland turn back Indiana. Philadelphia beat Golden State. Of course, Steph Curry hurt again. He'll be out a few weeks, according to Steve Kerr. So how Golden State responds, because they haven't played all that well this season. When you get right down to brass tacks, I mean, you look at their record, they are 14-16. It's not what you expect from a team that's been, winning titles repeatedly of late. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond, because they've been without Curry. Wiggins has missed time. He did return to practice the other day. Draymond Green day to day, but he's a head case as it is. He kind of reminds me of Ben Wallace, only not as talented. But it'll be interesting to see how Golden State responds going forward. Good to see you, Paul. Hopefully things are good with you. It's been quiet in here this morning, which is weird, but that's all right. I'm not going to complain about it. I know not everybody's awake yet. I wasn't awake half an hour ago, so I'm probably still not awake fully now. But like I said, we got a full slate of action. We got some good stuff on the slate to talk about. Morning, Michael. Good to see you as well. Let's see here. What else we got going on that's worth talking about? What we see on the ice last night before I get too involved in going on to what's going to happen today. Only 3 games in the AHL last night. 2 of the games were blowouts. Minnesota beating Chicago 4-1. St. Louis beating Calgary 5-2. And then in the upset special, I guess you want to call it one, the Arizona Coyotes. They've played well at the Mullet Arena. You figure it out. They beat the New York Islanders 5-4. A spirited showing from the Coyotes, who are trying to not be a complete doormat. They're still 7th in the Central. But you look at their home record in front of that small crowd, they're 4-2-1 at the Mullet Arena. That's right. The Coyotes have played 7 home games, and they've played 21 games on the road this season. So a lot of games coming in Tempe for them going forward. But hey, good for them. Karel Vejmelka has played well at times early in the season. We got a slew of games today. 13 of the 13 games, so 26 of the 32 teams on the ice, including a couple big matchups. Dallas and Carolina is a good matchup. You've got Florida and New Jersey. You've got, of course, the ever-popular rivalry games between teams like the Rangers and the Flyers. I don't know what's going on with the Flyers. They continue to disappoint, to say the least. You've also got Nashville at Colorado. You've got Winnipeg and Vancouver. You've got the Islanders now have to go. They're losing to Arizona. They have to go to play Vegas. That should be an interesting game. Toronto goes to Washington. Of course, we saw the Capitals kind of fall flat. You know, they had the big thing where Ovechkin scored his 800th goal in the win over Chicago earlier in the week. Then they went home and were completely handcuffed by Dallas, losing 2-1 in a defensive struggle. And that's basically what Washington's done all season. They generate some offense for a couple games, and then they go right back into snooze mode, basically, and that's a problem. Oh, good to see you, Brody. It'll be interesting because, you know, I've been in Highmark Stadium in December and in January, and, you know, I've been there when Miami's come to town in those months, and it didn't work for Dan Marino. And after watching the way Tagovailoa looked last week against the Chargers, a team that had literally no guys of note playing defense, to start 3 of 17 against that defense with no pass rush and no real players. If I'm Miami, I have to be a little bit concerned because you were cold when it was 55 degrees in an indoor stadium. When you faced the Chargers last week, the temperature currently, and I say currently because obviously, you know, it's going to fluctuate during the course of the day, is 30 degrees in Orchard Park. It feels like 21. It's still snowing. They expect snow to continue for the next several hours. It's going to make for interesting weather. And just one quick stat about that before we move on is the fact that in games where the game time temperature is under 40 degrees since 2017, the Miami Dolphins are 0-7. They've been outscored by an average of over 17 points a game in those contests. So we'll see what they can do. But, I mean, you also have to take into consideration that turf is going to be frozen solid, like unknown today. And, you know, Tagovailoa already has had concussion issues, as we all know. And if he gets hit like Mike White did last week, and Mike White got folded up like, you know, a wet cardboard box, you have to wonder, will that take a toll on him? And will he end up getting smacked around again? And then you have all kinds of questions. Tyreek can play in the KC. Don't forget, Tyreek Hill was limping around against the Chargers as well. And it doesn't matter if he can play in the cold. The question is, can the rest of that team play in the cold? And, you know, I get Tagovailoa says it snows in Alabama. Yeah, I live in the South. It doesn't snow like it does in Buffalo. And the winds aren't like they are in Buffalo either. I'm not saying we're going to see a game like we saw with New England last year with the really heavy winds. But, you know, you're talking about, here's the hourly forecast in Buffalo. 3 o'clock, snow showers. 4 o'clock, snow showers. 5 o'clock, snow showers. 6 o'clock, snow showers. 7 o'clock, snow. 8 o'clock, snow. 9 o'clock, snow. 10 o'clock, snow. 11 o'clock, snow. And you can just keep repeating snow, you know, indefinitely. Wind's going to be about 12 miles an hour out of the Midwest or out of the Southwest. They can gust, apparently, from what I've read and what I've heard from people, all the way up to 30 miles an hour. So that can make for an interesting evening, to say the least. I've already seen people complaining that they should have moved the game. But, that's just not the way it's going to work. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't think it's going to be good weather for the fish. Now, in case you just joined us, I want to point out again, there's a link in the show box below. You can get a special 14 parlay that's been constructed only for viewers of the show. You get it for $12 if you use the promo code that I mentioned before. And I will pull it up one more time because I don't remember what it was because I need to generate my own codes, but that's something I have to work on for another day. The promo code is HRKV60CK. HRKV60CK. You punch in the promo code, you save 60%. Instead of being $12, it's a little under $5. And that way, you show everybody that we've got people tuning in. We build up the engagement. We build up the viewers. You get some extra picks. I benefit from it, from knowing that people that are watching, and we can build the show from there. So don't miss out on that as well. With that said, we'll take a look at some of the picks that I'm looking at for today, and we'll start with 3 for the money. Like I said, this panned out last week. Looking for it to pan out this week. Going to start with the New Jersey Devils over the Florida Panthers. The Panthers, I can't figure out. They were a great team a year ago. Now they're floundering. They're just a game above 500 at 14-13-4. They're 6-9-1 on the road. Sergei Bobrovsky has not looked nearly as sharp as he did a season ago. You look at his numbers. And he's coming into this game 6-9-1, a save percentage of .891, a goals against of .333. He's been outplayed by Spencer Knight. And Florida's offense, it's not as dangerous as it was a year ago. They went out and they got Tkachuk. He's put up 39 points in 28 games. But they've only got 2 guys that have double-digit goals all season, and that's Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe, who has a team-high 15. Barkov has just 6 goals and 21 points. Reinhardt has 9 goals and 11 assists. And, maybe moving Huberdeau and Weegar negatively impacted this team because when you look at it, they don't really have the big production you would expect. Meanwhile, you're facing a New Jersey team that leads the Metropolitan. They're 21-7-2. Strangely, they're better on the road than they are at home. They're 10-6-1 on home ice at the Prudential Center. Away from home, 11-1-1. The Devils have dropped 4 in a row, but they've played some pretty good teams. They played the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Stars in that stretch before losing to Philadelphia. I think they're going to bounce back tonight. You look at the way the Devils have played. You got Hughes, you got Brad Hishier's played well, Dougie Hamilton. They've got good depth guys. The goaltending has been terrific. Who would have thought Vitek Vanacek would be 12-3-2 with a .237 goals against and a .912 save percentage at this point of the season? Remember this guy that played for the Capitals last season? Him and Samsonov in Toronto now. And both those guys have played well. And you look at Washington and they're 2 games above 500 with Kemper and Charlie Lindgren. But speaking of, we just talked about Vanacek. Samsonov has been terrific for Toronto when he's healthy. You look at his numbers, he comes in and he's got a 9-2-0 record and a 170 goals against and a .939 save percentage. So he's been phenomenal. A lot of people, criticized Kyle Dubas in the offseason for not being aggressive and letting Jack Campbell go to Edmonton and signing these 2 guys who have had injury issues and had been underwhelming. And he and Matt Murray have both played really well in the first third of the year. So it's going to be interesting for sure. Now, in the bowl games, let's talk about those here because we've got North Texas and Boise State. North Texas, of course, fired Seth Luttrell, so he won't be coaching in this game. North Texas hasn't been overly great. They score a bunch of points, they give up a ton of points, but you're facing a Boise State team that is very good on the defensive side of the ball. Finished 11th in the country in scoring defense, giving up just 18.5 points a game. Taylon Green has been decent since he took over the starting job and Hank Backmeyer went into the portal. They've got George Halani, they've got Ginty, so they've got some good running backs. But I think that Boise State defense is going to hold North Texas in check. And Boise State's not going to need to score a ton of points to get a win in that one. So I think that one's going to stay under the total. 59.5 seems a little high given the fact that, like I said, Boise State 11th in scoring defense. You look at their numbers defensively, opposing teams threw for just 160.7 yards a game this season. They ran for 120.8 and just 3.4 yards a carry. North Texas, I don't know what to make of them. They were 6-2 in Conference USA, but they weren't overly impressive. They have their quarterback Austin Oon is, 300 years old. He completed just 56.7% of his throws. He threw 13 interceptions in 13 games. They don't have a great run game. Well, as far as, having one feature back, Ragsdale and Attaway and Adai split the workload. But, I mean, you're looking at a team that's – you have to wonder how motivated they're going to be here. You look and you see that let me just double check here. Yeah, Phil Bennett's going to be the interim coach. He's the defensive coordinator, so who knows who's going to call the plays there and whether it's going to be successful for the Mean Green. I'm just going to back Boise State to keep this one under the total. And UC Santa Barbara, that's right, the Gauchos, that's right, everybody's favorite team to be named after a hat. -3.5 over Portland State. The Gauchos have played well this season. They've put together a solid record. You're looking at a team that has depth. Joe Pasternak, has done a good job with this program. They have 2 losses on the season. They lost at Duquesne. They lost at Northern Arizona back in November. They haven't really faced any big teams. They beat Fresno State out on a neutral floor. They beat Pepperdine in overtime on the road in Malibu. They've beaten Pacific. They're going on the road here, but Pasternak will slow the game down. He'll be very methodical. Portland State 5-6. They lost to Seattle. They lost to Gonzaga. They lost to West Virginia. They do have a win over Oregon State, but Oregon State's not really a good basketball team. They were blown out by Cal Poly, which is saying something. They lost to Santa Clara. And you look, if Portland State controls the tempo, because they're 15th in the country in tempo, Santa Barbara's 293rd, that could work against the Vikings. They're 326th in effective field goal percentage at 55%. They're 317th, giving up offensive rebounds on 33.6% of opponents' misses, and they foul people way too often. They give up the second most free throw attempts per field goal attempt in the nation. When you're a middle-of-the-road team in a conference like the Big Sky, the last thing you want to do is give free points to an opposing team. And that's where they're going to end up hurting themselves, because the last thing they want to do is give a team like the Gauchos free points. So I'm going to back you see Santa Barbara in that one. You see the payouts there. If you go just with the money lines, a little better than a little under 4.5 to 1. If you go with the puck line and the Gauchos covering the line, better than 9 to 1. Andrew pointing out that 6 wins in a row for the Knicks. That's right. They swept a 2-game set from the Bulls. They're 9-0 when they give up 108 or less. Yeah, the Knicks have played good basketball. It's almost like they have realized, hey, Tom Thibodeau is a guy that plays defense. Maybe we should follow the game plan. They rolled to a 114-91 win yesterday. Sad part is the Knicks are winning. They're not gaining any ground. They're still 4th in the Atlantic Division despite being 16-13 because Philadelphia has won 4 in a row in front of them, and the Nets have won 5 straight. So some good basketball coming out of the Atlantic Division, which is strange because normally we talk about the Eastern Conference being full of doormats, but should the season end today, they've actually got 9 teams that are 500 or better. Only the Raptors at 13-16 would be in the play-in field as a sub-500 team. And I mean, it's been a weird season because you look out west and there is no one dominant team in the West. Memphis is 19-9. New Orleans is 18-10. The Nuggets are 17-11, and then the Suns are 17-12. Then you got Sacramento, and you're like, what the hell is Sacramento doing up on this list? They're 16-12. The Kings have played some good basketball. They knocked off Detroit last night, 122-113. That's a good young nucleus that they've built out there in Sacramento with Keegan Murray and De'Aaron Fox, and Herter is there, and you've got Sabonis. It'll be better when they get Mitchell back from his illness, and they got Queta, who didn't play yet last night. Didn't get a ton of production from the bench. They basically only went 7 deep because Malik Monk played 26 minutes and Terrence Davis played 17. I didn't realize Matthew Dellavedova was still in the league. He played 9 minutes for Sacramento, and then Richaun Holmes and Chimezie Metu played 3 and 4 minutes respectively. Feel bad for the Pistons because they lost Cade Cunningham for the year after shin surgery. So that's a tough break for them. Now we will take a look at 4 for the show. This is one of the parlays I sent out on my premium plays today that you guys get for tuning in. So, I mean, it's a bonus. SMU minus 3.5 over BYU. This game, the bowl game of, let's see which one. Oh, this is the New Mexico Bowl, right, from Albuquerque. You could say, well, Rashee Rice isn't playing for SMU. He caught 96 passes for 1,355 yards and 10 scores. He has a toe injury. He won't play. Starting offensive lineman Jalen Thomas is out. Dylan Gaffney out for SMU. But you look at BYU, and you're like, who the hell is going to play for them? Jaron Hall's not going to play. So there's their starting quarterback. He's gone. Their backup quarterback transferred to Arizona State. So they're expecting, and like I say, they're expecting, because you never know what BYU is going to do. But the expectation is that Cade Finnegan, who played at Boise State previously, that transferred in. He played 3 games in 2020 with the Broncos. 15 of 28 passing, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. It's expected that he's going to start. Keanu Hill is questionable at best for BYU. You might not see Puka Nacua, who had 48 catches. Meanwhile, defensively, Keenan Pilley, who was the second leading tackler for BYU, is in the transfer portal. Peyton Wilger is also out. BYU's defense left something to be desired this year, to say the least. You're looking at the fact that, sure, Sataki went 7-5, but his defense gave up 235.7 yards a game and just about 2 scores a game through the air. They were gouged by the run. They finished 100th in scoring defense at 30 points a game. Tanner Mordecai should be able to, even without Rice, should be able to throw the ball against this team and get the win. Yeah, I saw the snow up there in Ontario and everything, Crystal, and obviously, it's coming down in Orchard Park now. So plenty of snow, making it a true winter wonderland for everybody up in that, north of the border, and of course in the snow capital of the world, which is Western New York. But hopefully, everybody's safe, everybody's traveled safe, and there aren't any incidents with that. Bill, also good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Hopefully everything well with you as well. Rice and Southern Miss. I look at this total and I say, why is it this low? Both these teams pretty good offensively in the Lending Tree Bowl. This game in Alabama, weather not going to be a factor. They say that it could be a freshman under center for Rice, depending on how Wiley Green and TJ McMahon are injury-wise. Could be AJ Padgett for Rice under center. But we're looking at a Rice team that was pretty good at putting points on the board, and, of course, they're pretty good at giving points up. They averaged better than 25 points a game. They were 120th in the FBS, giving up 33.8 points a contest. Now, Southern Miss, you always wonder who's going to play quarterback and will they have any success. On the plus side, you look and see, hey, Southern Miss was 44th in scoring defense, but then you look, hey, Southern Miss was 12th in the Sun Belt. They gave up 63 plays of at least 20 yards this season. Their defense is susceptible. And it'll be interesting to see, will Zach Wilkie be able to play better than he's played most of the season? And then you have to wonder, will it matter because they've got Frank Gore Jr., who ran for over 1,000 yards. I think this total is just too low. I think they should end up somewhere in the low 50s. I'm going to look for that to go over the number. Got the Rangers over the Flyers. Just can't trust Philadelphia. The Rangers, they beat Toronto the other night, ended the Leafs' 15-game point streak in a low-scoring affair. They won 3-1. The Flyers, if it wasn't for Columbus, they'd be in the basement of the Metropolitan Division. They just don't seem to have a lot of fire to them. They had lost 6-7 before beating New Jersey the other day. Carter Hart has been good, but he doesn't get a ton of support. The Flyers have lost 7 games in overtime or shootouts this season, mainly because they don't score enough. They've got one guy with double-digit goals, and that's Konechny has 12. Then Kevin Hayes has 9, and Owen Tippett has 8. That's not going to get it done at this level. 74 goals in 31 games. You're not going to beat a lot of teams that way. And that's been the issue for the Flyers. I think the Rangers should be able to take advantage of that. And the Sabres, they come off that win over the Coyotes. They've won 2 in a row. They're back to 500 on the year, 14-14-2. They score a lot. They give up a lot. They blanked the Kings the other night in a game that was 0-0 after 40 minutes. And then they scored 6 times in the third to get the victory in that one. Then they went on the road and they beat Colorado, granted a banged-up Colorado squad. But, that Colorado team still piled up 42 shots in the game, or 42 shots in the game. And to go into Denver and beat the Avalanche is a tough task no matter what the status of their health is. So kudos to them for that. I think they'll take care of Arizona. Like I said, the Coyotes played last night. They beat the Islanders. You have to wonder, will they be a little fatigued? Will they start Vejmelka in both ends of the back-to-back, or are we going to see the number 2 goalie for the Coyotes in this one, who is, I have to double-check who it is because I don't remember off the top of my head. It is, right, Connor Ingram. The guy that Nashville had to start last year after Saros got hurt in the playoffs. If they start Ingram, it won't go well for Arizona. He's 1-6-1, a 457 goals against, an 866 save percentage in 8 starts. So some horrid numbers. Andrew saying Argentina versus France in the World Cup final. Last I knew, France was trying to battle through an illness that was running rampant. You have to wonder, will that take an effect on them? Argentina's just played really good soccer since the opener. And I know France is the defending champs. I just don't know if they'll have enough in the tank for that contest. And with that, we will head to the Shot in the Dark in just a moment. But I'm just going to remind everybody once again, of course, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell because you'll never miss the show. Like I said, we want to know, do you want the show to stay where it is on Saturdays in the morning? Would it be better if we were on Friday in the evening sometime to cover what's going on Saturday? But we want to hear from you guys and tell us what you think would be good. So make sure you comment in on YouTube or whatever, and get your thoughts out on that, because we're contemplating which time slot will be better. But we need to hear from the viewers, because obviously, without your input, it wouldn't get us any information. We would just be making an arbitrary decision. Like I said, you can always get my best premium bets every day at experts.winnersandwhiners.com. And like I said, in the show box below is a special 4-team parlay just for viewers of the show. It's $12, but if you use the promo code HRKV60K, that's HRKV60K, CK, 60CK. You'll save 60%. It'll be a little under $5. That's only for viewers of the show. It's a special gift from us to you for taking the time to tune in. So take advantage of that opportunity. We'll be coming up with different promos each week. So who knows what next week's will be, because I haven't decided yet. And with that, we'll go to everybody's favorite, Shot in the Dark, and You're Too Late. Fortunately, none of these games start early, so I tried to go with games that were a little later in the day, barring Cincinnati, Louisville, which starts at 11. But that's because I was trying to get another bowl game in here. So we'll start with this. Portland over the Rockets. I know Portland lost yesterday. Houston still can't play defense. Portland has looked pretty good with Damian Lillard's back. And I think they should take care of business against the Rockets. Speaking of Houston, we'll go to the college hoops environment. And we're going to take the Houston Cougars minus 2.5 over Virginia. If you want to play with the total, it's very low because you're looking at two very good defensive teams. The Cougars have given up more than 56 points, just once, and that was in their loss to Alabama last Saturday. You look at the point totals, otherwise, 36, 55, 45, 48, 56, 44, 52, 48, 42, and they only allowed 46 to North Carolina A&T on Tuesday night. Meanwhile, Virginia, they're not quite as good defensively. 61, 42, 79, 61, 45, 68, 57, and 50. They haven't played, though, since December 6th when they beat James Madison. So you have to wonder, will they be a bit rusty after 10 days of not playing? Both teams very methodical. The Cougars 348th in adjusted tempo at 63.5 possessions a game. Virginia, second slowest tempo in the country, 60.3 possessions a night. You look at Virginia, they've beaten Baylor, they beat Illinois, they beat Michigan. Houston has beaten Oregon, they beat Kent State, they beat St. Mary's. They lost to Alabama in a game where they basically just lost their composure, but you look, the Cougars second in effective field goal percentage defense, 13th in turnover percentage, third in three-point defense, second in two-point defense. They lead the nation in block percentage. They're 11th in steal percentage. I'm just trying to pull up what the total is for this game. It's not very high. It was in the low, I think it was 113 or something like that last night. Ooh, look at that. It climbed. It skyrocketed. It opened at 112.5. It's now 113.5 at most books. FanDuel has it at 114.5. I don't know if we'll get there. This could be a rock fight. This could end up kind of like the Kent State game did for Houston that ended 49-44. The Pelicans over the Suns. Hey, the Pelicans beat Phoenix twice already this season, and you're like, wow, what's going on with the Suns? New Orleans, they're healthy for the most part. I mean, they're missing Ingram, but this is a Phoenix team. They're 17-12. I mean, they played well at home, but I mean, they just snapped a 5-game losing skid by beating the Clippers Thursday night. Cameron Payne is currently listed as out for the Suns. DeAndre Ayton is supposed to be out with an ankle sprain. Dwayne Washington Jr. is out. Cam Johnson's still out until early January. That's a lot of pieces for the Suns to try to replace. I know they got CP3 back, but without Ayton, they don't have a big man to contain Williamson, and who I know isn't the biggest dude in the world, but, he's aggressive inside. And I just don't trust this Suns team right now. Valanciunas should have a field day inside, which will work in their favor as well. I look for New Orleans to bounce back in that one. And, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk at least somewhat about the NFL. I'm going to take the Bills over Miami, obviously. The weather is going to be a huge factor. We're looking at a Dolphins team that has struggled offensively the last couple of weeks. They were beaten by Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Then they struggled to do anything against the Chargers. Because you look at the 2 touchdowns that Miami had. One was where somebody punched a fumble out so Tyreek Hill could pick it up and run with it. The other one was when Davis fell down in coverage. But other than that, Miami looked flustered. They don't run the ball well. And it'll be interesting to see if those defensive backs can keep their footing in the weather. The karmic balance would be if they shoveled all the snow and put it on Miami's side of the bench to make up for the fact that at Hard Rock Stadium that the visiting team is always out in the sun. Cincinnati over Louisville in the bowl game. I'm just taking the points here. Like I said, both teams without their actual coach from the season. Now that Satterfield's taking the Cincinnati job. Malik Cunningham not playing for Cincinnati. Or, no, I'm sorry, for Louisville. So Brock Doman is supposed to start a quarterback. Keitrell Clark, their top corner, won't play. Tyler Hudson, who had over 1,000 yards receiving, not playing. Tyon Evans, who ran for 525 yards, not starting or not playing. A lot of pieces missing for Cincinnati offensively. Things pretty much the same for Cincinnati. Leonard Taylor and Josh Wiley, both tight ends, and Tyler Scott and Trey Tucker, who combined for 103 catches themselves, won't play for Cincinnati. Jaden Thompson entered the portal. Ben Bryant is out for injury. So Evan Prater will start under center. This is basically a battle of attrition. But, you have to think Satterfield knows what Louisville does. While he won't be coaching, it'll be Kerry Combs as the interim coach. If you think Satterfield hasn't pointed out the weaknesses of that team, you're sadly mistaken. Happy holidays to you too, buddy. Hopefully everything is well over there in the Delta. I don't know if Steen ever gave you feedback on the ribs you sent, but, he should have. Utah over BYU. It's the holy war on the hardwood. The Utes have played good basketball. They beat Arizona earlier this year. They've won 5 in a row. They edged Washington State and Pullman. They're coming off a demolition of UTSA. BYU is BYU. They're inconsistent. They win, then they lose. They win a couple, then they lost to USC and Butler. They won a couple more, then they lost to South Dakota and Utah Valley. Then they bounced back. They beat Creighton on a neutral floor. They whipped up on Western Oregon, who nobody cares about because they're not a Division I team. The Cougars turn the ball over a lot. 334th in turnover percentage. They don't shoot the three well, which is unusual for BYU. Utah third in the nation in effective field goal percentage defense, 39.2%. Sixth in three-point defense, fifth in two-point defense. Could be a long night for Mark Pope's BYU squad. Threw a prop in there. J.K. Dobbins over 48.5 rushing yards. Since we don't necessarily know / are convinced about what to make of who's playing quarterback for the Ravens, you have to think they're going to run the ball. After all, that's what they like to do. They're tied for second in the league in rushing offense, behind only the Bears. Meanwhile, we're looking at a Cleveland team that, there's always next year, right? The Browns 27th in scoring defense, giving up 24.8 points a game. They're 22nd against the run. They've given up 17 rushing touchdowns, which is the fifth most in the league. They're 26th in yards per carry allowed. Don't forget, this is a Cleveland defense. They gave up 238 yards rushing to the Chargers. They've given up at least 160 yards 5 times on the ground this season. And in the first meeting against Baltimore, they gave up 160. They also gave 171 to Buffalo. They gave 195 to Miami. They gave 202 to the Falcons and 238 to the Chargers back on October 9th. Not coincidentally, in the sixth worst rushing, the 6 games where the Browns gave the most yards on the ground, they lost all 6. The only time they gave up more than 100 yards and won, they beat the Steelers in week 3. So I look for Baltimore to run the ball. I think Dobbins will get a good chunk of work, considering the fact that, the quarterback play is going to be questionable. Dobbins coming in off a good week last week. as he ran the ball 15 times for 120 yards and a score in his first game back after being on the shelf for an extended period. He had missed 7 weeks with another knee injury. Kansas State over Nebraska. I'm sorry. Give Kansas State credit. Everybody talks about how we've talked about the football team because they won the Big 12 title. But the basketball team, they're 9-1 for Jerome Tang. They've taken care of business. They beat Nevada in overtime. They beat LSU on a neutral floor. They've taken down Wichita State. They've just played good basketball. And Nebraska, I'll give Nebraska credit. They hung in against Purdue last week. They rallied from 10 down at the half to force overtime. But this is still a team that's 6-5. They don't shoot the ball well. And in their bigger games, they lost to Oklahoma on a neutral floor. They lost to Memphis on a neutral floor. They lost to St. John's on the road. They lost in Bloomington to Indiana. They lost at home to Purdue. They beat Creighton on the road, but that's it. So in games that are considered, A games, which is, and Ken Pom is representing a top 50 opponent based on location. They're 1-5. I don't have a ton of faith in them here. I'm going to take Kansas State and give the points. Vegas over the Islanders. We just talked about the Islanders played last night. They lost to Arizona. Now they have to go to Vegas, who's gotten very good goaltending from Logan Thompson and company. Playing at home works in Vegas's favor. And the Leafs over the Capitals. Like I said, Washington looked flat the other night at home. Toronto's been playing well. I mean, they were shut down by the Rangers, but Shesterkin was very good in goal. I'm not convinced that Kemper or Lindgren can put together that kind of performance. I look for Toronto to bounce back with a win here. With that said, if you just play the money lines on all those, a little better than $30,000 in your pocket for the holidays. If you play the money line or the run lines and the puck lines and point spreads, 134,881 and 52 cents on a hundo. Can't go wrong with that. And that wraps up all the picks for today. Hopefully you guys were entertained. I know I'm still trying to wake up. I'll probably go back to sleep. But I'm glad everybody made it in. I hope you all take advantage of the special parlay that's out there. Like I said, the link is in the show box below. It's a special 4-teamer for the viewers. It's $12, but if you use the promo code HRKV60CK, HRKV60CK, you can save 60% on that parlay, and it will be emailed to you. I believe it's almost instantaneously. And the picks or the parlays or the games in that particular parlay are all later today, so you'll have time if you want to think about it, or if you want to do it afterwards, or if you want to drink a cup of coffee, or whatever it is you want to do. But don't miss out on it. Take advantage of it. We'll have a new deal next week when we come back with the next episode. And like I said, make sure you comment whether you are happy with the Saturday time slot. Would you rather see us Friday evening sometime? Give us your opinion on what is best for you so we can do our best to accommodate and make this available to as many people as possible. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors' friends. Of course, have a safe week. Enjoy all the bowl games because, let's face it, there's bowl games today. The NFL's tomorrow. There's bowl games on Monday. There's bowl games on Tuesday, I want to say. It's weird to try and pay attention to the bowl game schedule because you look and it's like, hey, here's the Mr. Clean Toilet Bowl. Yeah, there's 2 bowl games on Tuesday. There's 1 on Wednesday. There's 1 on Thursday. There's 2 on Friday. And then we'll be back Saturday on Christmas Eve. There'll be 1 bowl game. It's the Hawaii Bowl. That'll be Middle Tennessee taking on San Diego State. We'll talk about that. Then we will talk about the NFL schedule for Week 16 because there will be games on Christmas Eve. We'll have, a whole slew of games. You'll have Buffalo, Chicago. You'll have New Orleans, Cleveland, Houston, Tennessee, Seattle, Kansas City, the Giants and the Vikings, the Bengals and the Patriots, the Lions and the Panthers, the Falcons and the Ravens, the Commanders and the 49ers, the big game, the Eagles and the Cowboys, and, of course, the Raiders and Steelers. So we'll have all those to talk about next Saturday. Of course, we'll be able to talk about the Christmas Day games in the NBA. We'll talk about next week because, of course, the league is quiet on Christmas Eve. But you'll have 5 games on Christmas Day. The NHL will also be quiet. I'm almost positive. Just going to pull that up real quick. Yeah, the NHL will have no games on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, or on Boxing Day. So the league will actually have 3 days off before they resume on Tuesday the 27th. So we won't be talking hockey next week because there won't be any games. But we'll still have plenty of entertaining games to talk about. And, of course, we'll be talking about what's going on during the course of the week and what's going on going forward. But, wow, there'll be no college basketball next Saturday, too. There'll be a couple games on Christmas because there'll be a tournament out in Honolulu. And, of course, Creighton is going to play DePaul because everybody wants to see that on Christmas Day. But that'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week for Winners and Winers and Just Parlays. I'm Chris King. We'll see you next week. So long.